2:51 a.m. Monday, January 3rd, 2021. Woke up about 20 minutes ago on the couch. Dry air, felt like sleep apnea. I had the fire going, so I was on the couch to mind it and maintain it, waking up every hour for a bit, and I slept for a couple hours. Started off the day where my dryer was taking extra long to dry my clothes because the air is very cold and the heating element still doesn't work because I still haven't had a chance to replace it because that's money that I don't have at this time. See also all of my previous videos bitching about people not tipping. I called in and said that I was going to be late. I was told I should just put some jammies on and bring it in because they have a washer dryer at work for aprons and rags and stuff, and it could take 10 minutes. And so I let the thing go and took a nap because I was like, I really don't feel like going in to earn basically just run money tonight anyway. Like I had been considering calling in and I was just going to be late and ponder it. Finally, I started feeling weird about it, so I decided to go in. Shit was finally dry by about 7:30. I got into the store by about 8. I was getting ready to start everything up, and I had a couple questions about things. I'd been told that we didn't get paid overtime that we were supposed to get for Christmas Eve. I was shown where that was actually not the case. We did get it. It just wasn't calculated the same way, which is kind of weird. I said, okay. And had an issue last night where in 22 deliveries that I took, I spent about $60 in gas, and I was compensated for about 26 and change out of that. Domino's made a change to their runs where if you take a double, they give you strict mileage by their routing to each instead of the mileage to and from for both. Now, the mileage to and from for both was at least, something. This is even worse. Back in the day, what we used to get was a flat rate, so that if we delivered a block away, it was like $1.25 per run. And if we delivered all the way on the other side of town, it was $1.25 per run. And by doing this all night long, 22 runs at $1.25. Well, let's see. $22 and a quarter of that would have come out about the same for just a flat rate. The issue is, even that rate was when gas was like $2 a gallon. We're getting like 40 some cents a mile right now, and the way they're trying to cheat the drivers means that nobody's actually being compensated for the actual gas that they're using. They're getting paid a pittance. And anytime you have to go deliver to somebody who doesn't tip at all or give you some ridiculous little chump change, you're basically depending on the other generous tippers to be the ones to pay for your gas money for that run, which I think is wrong. The manager had said something about the fact that she had delivered like 16 runs and made like $20 all day. She caught a ton of stiffs, and I was like, okay, so you should understand where we're coming from. She goes, no, actually, it doesn't bother me. And I said, only because you don't do this every day. This is not your regular thing. Any driver that made that kind of money on any regular basis would not last. And so I said, I know how to do this so that I get the entire run money for each run and not the partial, and that's what I'm going to need to do. And she says, okay, that's good, because otherwise I was going to need a double on my mileage every day. And she says, I can't do that. I said, okay, but the other thing is here, I said, if I catch a stiff, I'm going home. And then she's like, well, I'm not going to argue, whatever. She keeps trying to say that I make more money than she does. And I'm like, I don't think that a delivery driver who's complaining about the fact that he spends about $60 in gas out of a $100 day every single day, and then on the bad snow day it gets even more, is making more money than a general manager of a restaurant. As it is, my now ex-wife was the first assistant manager of this same exact restaurant, and she was in on what the general manager was making. So when she says, well, you make more than me, I said, well, how much do you make per hour? She goes, oh, well, we're not supposed to talk about that. I said, okay, so what is it, $18 an hour like Mike was making? She goes, Mike's been here like 10 years. Okay, and he's not making that. He was making 16 something. Okay. So, what, the general manager's making 15 an hour? Okay, cool. She's probably working between 40 to 80 hours a week. Then there's bonuses. This comes up to something like 30 or more a year. Whereas, as a delivery driver, I would be lucky to make 18 a year, all told. So yeah, somehow I make more money. Somehow I make more money, but I don't. And I was like, secondly, the fact that you make pizzas inside here, you are not using your own vehicle to do this job. You are not expending all that money to do this job. Now, while I'm spending all this money on gas to try and drive, I've also got to save up for anything that can possibly go wrong on my vehicle because it's up to me to keep that thing going so that I can keep working. It is my job. So I walked toward the back, got my stuff together and ready to go, and then I hear the assistant manager, who happens to be her husband, raise his voice toward me. Look, man, nobody wants to be here. This sucks. And if you don't want to be here, then go home. I said, okay. And I logged out and went home. Her sister, who's also a manager at the store, as is her dad, gave this sarcastic, have a great night. And I said, oh, yeah, I will. And I walked out and got the sign off my truck and brought it back in just as she was starting to talk shit. And the only thing I had to say was, you know, what I could do is every one of your problems that you have, I could just say, I don't care. It doesn't really bother me. And I'll bet that would not go over too well very quickly. And nobody said a further word, and I set the sign where it goes, and I went back out and I came home. I've been nodding on the couch off and on, snuggling the cats, trying to come up with an idea, anything to make my life better. So this dream that I just had, that I was almost a terror. I had a hell of a time waking up from it. I literally was like physically trying to wake up in the dream, and I could not wake up. It began with me, for some reason, delivering pizzas in Iowa City. Had delivered to some frat house or party location or something, and after delivering, stood out, smoked a cigarette before heading back or whatever, and somebody else is out delivering. And as it was, in my dream, this person was a relatively famous female professional wrestler. And so I was like, are you her? And she goes, yeah. She's Japanese, very hard English. And I said, wow. And so I'm sitting there smoking a cigarette. She comes sit down beside me. I was like, so can I ask you, did you see that recent street fight with Ty and Anna versus Bunny and Penelope or whatever? And she said, oh yeah, I know something. And I don't remember much of the conversation, but like some time passed and we were hanging out. And she like kissed me. And then everything went blank. And I woke up, as I recall, I believe I was in the driver's seat of my truck, parked facing what I thought was the old barn. And this was a rehash of a landscape that I had in my dream that was based on my actual homestead here. And through the course of this weird, panicky night terror dream, it turned out I was at somebody else's place. I had just entered their house thinking it was mine. They had allowed me to. There were people that I knew there. I kept flashing back and forth between my sister being the caretaker of this house and being somebody else's house completely. And then when I would ask people questions about stuff, they would just look at me like I was weird. Most of the time I couldn't get an answer. There were strangers, weird vehicles, people with guns. Eventually I was able to discern. It was one of those things where like you try and pull your phone out and nothing works. And I finally got the damn thing to work and get a map thing to pull up. And somehow I was trying to drive back to Burlington from Iowa City and had managed to make my way. According to the map that I looked at, it looked like I was in Nebraska near Lincoln. And there was a Lincoln motorcycle that I had attempted to ride at some point in this dream. Weird controls. And which I don't even know if Lincoln makes motorcycles. But when I looked at the map, my brain said North Dakota. So Lincoln is the capital of Nebraska. I've just looked up. My dream dictionary I normally use did not include any meanings for states. But what it did say is that if you find yourself in a state capital or somewhere else or whatever, that there's something about that you're, or a pun on the name or something about the city that there's something. So like, okay, so what? Lincoln, like linking together. Things are connected. Okay. So the motorcycle dream, the motorcycle part of the dream reflects some sort of a need for freedom or adventure. Um, Dream of truck and driving truck implies feeling overworked and nearing burnout. Uh, the idea of any kind of romance or encounter like I had in this dream with a celebrity is either something about their personal life that I'm aware of that I echo with, which I kind of do, or some other fascination with that individual. Because it's not like I was just like, oh yeah, this one I want to. But so the thing is, this particular celebrity was a professional wrestler, a female. This is somebody who I have watched quite a bit of her work, and she's one of the best wrestlers in WWE. They book her terribly. She had a championship reign or two, none of which were long enough. And the stories that they had her do was like losing the belt because she was distracted and ran out and somehow got counted out in the match. This was the one match in the history of that company where a count out ever counted. It was supposedly set rules by the boss's daughter at the beginning or whatever. So there's this whole tangled thing about an underused, poorly, how do I put it? This is a person that the ownership of the company or whatever was not taking the full advantage of for their skills and talents. This is somebody that could be doing great things and instead it's basically sitting at home waiting for a call. Well, gee. So, my next work day is scheduled on Wednesday. I don't even know what's going to happen there. But I also know I wasn't the only one having an issue. Other people yesterday and the day before. The day before was pre-blizzard and New Year's Eve. And then New Year's Day was a blizzard. And then today was the extreme cold. And in all of these, nobody wanted to work. Most of the crew called in. And so that's the other thing is like, it's one of those, everybody else fucks off, does half-ass bullshit and everything else. But the 1 second that you do it, everybody lets you have it. That's the situation that I encountered today. Yesterday, I was one of the ones that showed up when nobody else did. And I got a thanks, but I didn't make enough money. I made $20 less than the next person and way the fuck less than most everybody else. Except for, apparently magically, the GM who somehow only took stiffs all day. Which also kind of proves my thing about, isn't that kind of funky when one person just always gets all the stiffs? Like, that shouldn't happen, but it does. Isn't that kind of weird? And she experienced that, and I said, well, so what did you think about that? And she goes, well, it didn't really bother me. So, the other aspects of this dream basically culminated in feeling trapped, feeling underappreciated or underutilized, being manipulated, and needing to feel some kind of adventure. So, I don't know. Under normal circumstances, bringing home at least $100 a day would be great. And when I was in the married life and the both of us worked for that company at the same time, we did quite handsomely together. But when it's just one person trying to cover all the bases, it's much more difficult because what we had going before was basically one of us would pay the bills and the other took care of all the excesses, expenses, and extras. Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know. I think what's going to end up having to happen is I'm going to have to make direct contact with the owner of the franchise and this company and ask if any of the concerns that I've given to this manager have been forwarded. Because I think what the issue really comes to is and I've heard this from several other of the people there, without naming any names. There's quite a few people that say the same thing about there's a real management issue here, that the management's not actually good at managing. There's a fuckload of nepotism going on, and most of the time we all get along great. I got no personal issue with anybody. One of the gripes I have is that one of these relatives is married and is also fooling around with one of the other drivers. And I'm not going to come down on that because that's a situation I was kind of in at one point too. But on a karma basis, it's really frustrating to know that somebody is doing something wrong and unethical and being rewarded for it while I keep my nose clean and I barely fucking scratch by. And even if I wasn't driving a gas guzzler truck, I still wouldn't be getting by that well. Certainly not making the kind of fucking money these other people are making. They're all fucking pulling sometimes double what I make. So watching a bunch of shitbags and scumbuckets, be shitbags and scumbuckets and fucking karma rewards them. Meanwhile, I'm like, I've fucking completely turned my life around and can't fucking catch a break. So, yeah, that's why, Thanksgiving period, I was having some pretty negative ideation going on, some pretty strong, bad ideas in my head. And, Christmas wasn't as bad, but the money was better at that point. It's less destitution, desperation, the concern that I'm not going to be able to get by, especially at the holidays. Like, how can people be so cruel kind of thing. But yeah, so that was a really, really weird, disconcerting dream. It was terrifying. It went on and on and on. I believe I somehow managed to basically start off on trying to head home. And we left the land we were on, it was like there was a bunch of shit on the road, people driving by and whatever. And then there was, went to head out, and there was like this, it was almost Zelda-esque. It was like a four-way crossing where you had to leap onto the center platform and then pick one of the other three directions to leap across to, and then continue on. And I was like, oh, an adventure. So I was like, I'm going to go get my gun first. And that was where I started getting really lost, really confused. And then I was just like, wake up. And I finally woke up. And was like, what the fuck was that? And then jumped off the couch, went to the bathroom, smoked a cigarette, drank some water. There's some things in this dream that I can understand what they mean, and other things that I'm not sure, and some things that I think I don't want to understand. I should not have to take drastic and radical steps to get a fair shake. I should not have to, really what it comes to is more what I should be able to go to a boss and say, hey, I have this concern, and have my concern assuaged. I keep getting told that this dude that owns the company likes to help people, and it's like, okay, so help your drivers. Don't keep cutting their shit. Oh, you guys get paid $8 an hour? Yeah, dude, $8 an hour. I know that dude's raking it in. I know he's raking it in. What if we got paid better? Or what if there was mandatory gratuity on every order, or at least over $30 or $50 or something? It would be great. I keep getting arguments when I suggest things like that and from the same general manager, about how at first it was like, that's illegal in the state of Iowa. We can't do that because we're not a sit-down restaurant. I said, wow, that's a weird one. So I looked up the law, and it turned out that was bullshit. So I went back and said, hey, so that's not actually what the law says. And she says, well, yeah, but if we were going to do that, then you'd have to get tip minimum. And I said, well, actually, the state law says that mandatory gratuity added to anybody's check order to whatever percentage or flat rate fee. Number one is the owner of the company's decision as to what gets done with that money. They can choose not to give it to them, of course, but that kind of defeats the purpose. Why not just raise the price? But to grant this automatically to any given server, supposedly that it's going to take down their minimum wage, it turns out that, at least in Iowa, the state law regarding that says that any mandatory gratuity added cannot be given as a tip. It can be given as a gift or a bonus, but not a tip, and as such cannot be used against the minimum wage. So if I was to get the mandatory 20% on every single order I delivered, including the little short ones where, 16 and change would be about $4, 3 and change, right? Roundabouts of 20. A $100 order would be a $20 tip. A $50 order would be a $10 tip. You see how this goes. Every time we have to deliver a $100 order or a $10 order or a $16 order to someplace that doesn't tip, we're catching 30-some, 40-some cents a mile, whatever it is right now. I think it's maybe 45 or 48 cents, but it ain't fucking cutting it. Even as the fuel prices go down. It ain't fucking cutting it. So having this flat rate or, basic percentage gratuity added on to everything would actually guarantee a better outcome every night. Now, yeah, there could be times when somebody might be like, well, I was going to throw you a $50 bill tip, but that never happens. And honestly, I've gotten 3 better tips in the last 2 days since the new year than I got during the Christmas season. So all these people can just go fuck themselves. There's a lot of fucking people that are greedy and stingy, assholes toward others. Then there's people like me that try and do everything we can to be nice, to be cool, to be good. I used to be so helpful for so many people, and now I'm just like, man, I'm going to walk straight by this car accident, and I'm not going to help. I don't give a fuck anymore. That's where I'm at, is I will let people go. Oh, there's a car crash. I'm going to keep moving. For real. That's the mentality these days. Because nobody helps me with anything, I am under no obligation to help anybody else. I will choose to help people. I choose to help one of my coworkers having serious issues. There are things I happen to know how to deal with and have the means to deal with on hand. I choose to help. That's that whole thing with the people expecting everything of you. They walk all over you. They do all this shit. And then when other people fuck off, yeah, it's not that big a deal. It's whatever. At least you're here. You're helping out. Thanks, buddy. Pat him on the back. The first fucking time he says, what about me? They're like, don't be so fucking selfish. Been watching my videos the last couple of years. What do I constantly talk about? Called it. So what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to figure out how to live on gas station attendant wages? Is there going to be some place with, high-paying, unskilled labor, production of some sort, that isn't going to have a mask mandate, isn't going to ask me to submit to urinalysis, anything like that, because those are things I won't do. Is there any way that I can possibly grow my channel or create another channel and grow it to make any kind of money? I don't know, man. There was just a thing that went around like 2 days ago, or maybe it was yesterday, that was called YouTube Pick a Side. And if you don't know what it is, in short, the shortest of the short, there are a ton of investigative journalism channels that look into people who are legit grooming children online, who are doing inconceivably evil things of a sexual nature to minors, sometimes online. And the channels that expose these other people, who are oftentimes themselves YouTube creators, the people who do the exposing are getting in trouble, and the people who are being pedophiles and groomers are being allowed to continue creating content with their abuse on it. So they said, pick a side. Are you on the side of children's safety, or are you on the side of pedophiles? And so now everybody's waiting to see, because they've demonetized a ton of channels for doing legit content. And they've had videos that are hidden that I've put out about any given topic, where there will be a particular thing that, I'll have a video get into the shorts algorithm and catch 700, 800, 1,000, 1,500 views over, a couple days. And I'll have other short videos or little mentions of things and whatever like that don't get any fucking views whatsoever. And even if there's hashtags in the title or in the description and language that specifically connects it to other topics, it will not be showed up underneath this suggestion. Here's a small channel with some content. What do you think? And the reason the point that I'm at with this unkept hair, bathrobe, fucking messy house nonsense, doing a channel, is that I started off doing first-person view nature walks and outside stuff along with commentary. And that also didn't get views. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do for an employment situation, but if things are going to continue to be the way they are at this place, I'm not going to be able to stick around. And this manager says, well, I'm not going to sit here and try and convince anyone to stay. Like, that's not my job. And I'm like, actually, that kind of is her job, isn't it? What's that say about a manager that does not give a shit about whether the employees are doing well or not? Yeah, well, I got yelled at all day. Oh, well, nobody wanted to come in? Oh, is that because nobody's making money? During the Blizzard Day and the New Year's Eve, there were a couple of people that made less than $100 on a full-time 8 to 9 hour shift, as well as the few of us that did really well. So it's like, what are you supposed to do? You can't send a message directly to the customers telling them to fucking shape up. What you can do is add mandatory gratuity legally. and guarantee that your drivers are compensated if the customers won't. And the customers that want to bitch and complain about, well, I was going to tip anyway. Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate that. But this is really for the other people that weren't going to tip, that now I still have a tip's worth of money. And what that does is it gives you the incentive to do the job better, to get more runs out to more people. The more you take, the more you earn. Sounds like fair competition to me. So, that's my rant. That was my dream. That's what my day was like. I have no idea what my fucking week's gonna be like. Rose, if you see this would like to hang out, I got Monday and Tuesday off as well as Thursday. And you never know, I may end up having Wednesday off. Depends on how they treat me when I get there. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting because the guy running shift on Wednesday night is the father of this manager. I'm going to see how he reacts because I didn't say anything particularly disrespectful. I didn't raise my voice, even though somebody raised their voice at me that I've never raised my voice to before. We're going to see how this goes if everybody gets all butthurt and takes it personal in their whole entire freaking clan, possibly with a gay, just turns on me because I had a legitimate disagreement and a valid point that wouldn't be heard. So I'm putting this out here. It's a public video. I'm just putting this out here so I can say, yep, I called it. So yeah. Also, it's cold as fuck outside. It's like -5 out. That's bullshit too. Disrespectful out. Break your hip if you fall cold for your $8 an hour in gas mileage.